Today we're going to be doing a valve cover gasket on this 2016 F16 X5. It's got the n55 in it. On this car it's just starting to leak pretty bad, so we're going to go through, replace it, and some associated parts. In my case, I'm doing an engine air filter, the valve cover gasket set, spark plugs, and then this is the eccentric motor seal, and then the tube here goes from the valve cover to the intake. It's part of the PCV system. These get super brittle and they almost always break when removing them, so I definitely recommend ordering one for this job and replacing it at the same time. As for tools that you'll need, you'll just need your basic socket set, your torque set, e-torque set, and then you will need a special socket for the spark plugs because there's not a whole lot of space down in that spark plug hole. Most of the work that we're going to do here in the beginning is just about creating room for ourselves to work in and get that valve cover actually out of the way. So the first thing we're going to do is pull out this intake tube. You just kind of wiggle it, pull up on it, it'll disconnect at both ends and come out. After which I will loosen this worm clamp at the back here. You'll want to pull and remove each of these 3 wiring grommets, and then you can pull straight up on this air box here and the whole thing should slide out. So here, I've already got the tube removed. I'm actually going to remove the engine cover, and you're just going to grab it to the front, pull straight up. There's a place on the left and right side where it attaches. Go up and pull it out. Now we'll have a little bit more room to get up underneath here. So I've already loosened the hose clamp here, already removed all 3 of these wiring rubber grommets there, and then we can just pull straight up. There's a couple of these rubber pins that it sits on, front and back. After you get those removed, it's just a matter of wiggling it free from the hose there. With all that removed, we obviously already have quite a bit more room to work with. And now we want to start to pull apart the top of the windshield cowl here to give us more room at the top side. In order to remove that, there's a clip in the middle here. We'll pinch together while lifting up on this panel. There should be a little Christmas tree push pin connector here, which on this vehicle is missing, and then this panel should pull straight up and out. Give yourself a little bit more room. You can remove this rubber seal as well. Once you have the front of this pulled up, you'll notice that it is attached in the back corner. Here you just need to pull up on this tab to release it there in the back. With that out of the way, we'll do the same thing on the other side. Should be a pin connector here, or a push pin that's missing for mine here as well. And then this tab at the back, and we'll remove that panel. With both of those out of the way, we'll continue over to the passenger side of the car and remove the box that holds in our cabin air filters. It's just a single tab here on the bottom. You'll pull towards you, and you can finagle this out of the way. Now would be a good time to go ahead and replace your cabin air filters as well. They just pop out of here on the bottom. They come in a pack of 2. That out of the way, we're then going to go around and remove all of this plastic paneling here. We're actually going to leave the one on the right side. I don't think it's necessary to remove that, but we'll pull out this one in the center. Those look like T25s, possibly T30s. I'll let you know when I grab the right socket. Center panel will come out, and then we can remove this side panel as well. Looks like a 10mm, a push pin, and 2 of those Torx bolts as well. All right, so I did confirm they're T25. After unbolting this first panel, you can see there's some tall pins that they sit on. So when you remove it, it's just not going to pop right out. You're going to have to wiggle it to bring it up and off of those pins. Now I've got the left side removed as well. So we had 2 T25s, a 10mm, another 10mm, and then that push pin coming in through the front here. All right, and then the last thing that we're going to remove from the top side here is this crossbar here. Should be 16mm. There's 2 of them, and that'll pop right out. So now that we have tons of room to work with, we're going to go ahead and get the rest of this intake piping off. In order to do that, you've got a worm clamp at the bottom to loosen. This electrical connector, once again, this is the pipe that we're going to be replacing because they get so brittle. You can already see one of the tabs is broken there. Because I have a replacement, I'm just going to grab a screwdriver and I'm going to break off all those tabs so it pops out. We have a 10 millimeter here, this connector here, which we're just going to pinch at the top and bottom, and it will wiggle free. Hard to do with one hand. Got the electrical connector at the back for the mass airflow sensor, and then another rubber grommet similar to what held on the airbox that we'll have to pull it up off of. Then I'll wiggle the whole thing free as one piece. Okay, we got mine all ready to remove here. I guess a couple of tips and tricks for you is with these electrical connectors, I just grab a pick, get up underneath that tab edge, pull up gently to release it. Same thing on the back here. Sometimes it's hard to pinch that down, but you can also reach under the front side of the connector with the pick to release it. So now that that's all free, got the hose disconnected. I'll disconnect this at the engine side here, or at the intake manifold, just to get some more room to move that around. Got that all loose. I'll go ahead and remove this whole intake pipe. With that out of the way, the next thing that we'll do is remove this plastic bracket for all the wiring at the back of the engine here. The way that we'll do that is I'll get a screwdriver or pick, get under this tab and pop off the top half of it. I'll remove all the wires from the bracket, which will then give me room to unbolt it. With the wires removed from the bracket, now see what we're working with to hold it in. See, there's 3 Torx bolts back here. The outside 2 are the ones that actually hold in the bracket. We will be removing the middle one later, so if you want to pull that out at the same time, that's not a problem either. And then you have a tab on the far side here that you need to release as well. In order to remove this bracket on the far side, you'll have to reach your hand around the back into the hole, and there's a tab that you can depress right in there, which will then release it, and we can remove this bracket out of the way. Next thing we'll do is just grab this foam insulation here and remove it. And now with that out of the way, we can see the whole valve cover and everything else that we're going to need to remove to get it out of the vehicle. So what I'll do now is start removing some wiring. So I'll start with the eccentric shaft motor here. There's a tab on the top and bottom. Pinch, remove that, and just set it out of the way. Then we have our 2 oxygen sensor wires here. I typically mark them. It looks like this has been apart at some point, so you don't want to mix those up when they're going back together. And we'll remove those from the tabs. Just give them a little twist and they'll pop out. Unplug them, let them fall down. You'll be able to fish them out easy later, and then take the tail end here and pass it over and out of the way. These connectors can be a little tricky as well. So there's this gray tab that has to come out that way. I'll use a pick to pull that out and then pinch it to unplug. The other thing I'm going to remove while I'm over here is pull up on this plastic piece here, kind of on the tail end there. And I'm going to pop these 2 wires out of their places there. That's just going to give me a whole lot more room to work with. With all that out of the way, I'm now going to remove the bracket for the oxygen sensors. That's held in by the single T30 right here, after which we can just pull that out of the way. If you look now, we have easy access to all of the coils. We're going to go ahead and remove those now. So the way that you're going to do that, lift up on this tab, and when you lift it up, it should push the wiring out a little bit. You can then pull it out and unplug it all the way. These are going to be a little tricky to pull out. Sometimes you can grab them from the top and give them a yank like that. If it's being a little harder, you can stick a screwdriver or something through the hole here and use 2 hands on either side to lift it up and out. So I'm going to go ahead and go all the way down and remove all 6 of those. With the coils removed, I'm going to continue going down and removing this whole wiring harness. So we're going to have 3 8mm nuts holding the wire, the ground wire on between every other cylinder, between cylinders 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and 5 and 6. With those nuts removed, simply remove that eyelet, and then we're going to go ahead and remove all of our injector wiring. These are a little bit tricky. Once again, we're going to grab our pick and we're going to go down and, might be hard to see, but release that tab, and while we're holding it released, hard to do with one hand. We're gonna pull up on the wiring and remove it from the injector. So we'll get 2 hands, I'll do that. We're gonna remove all 6 of them. Now that we have all of our wiring removed, if you haven't already, remove that last T25 at the back, and then we'll be able to release the harness at these couple of points along it. And I'm gonna take the whole harness and put it over on the intake side of the motor out of the way. With that harness out of the way, you'll now see that we have a lot of room to work with, and we're just about ready to get the valve cover itself unbolted. Last thing we need to do is remove the injector rail. So we're gonna have a 14mm nut on each of the 6 injectors, a 17mm feeding the rail. You have a plug on the back that we need to remove, and then there are 4, I believe, 11mm bolts on the inside edge of the rail here that you'll need to remove as well. Get a screwdriver or use your hands, and you're gonna have to remove these plastic brackets that hold the wiring in place as well. So now that I've gone through, I've removed the nuts from all 7 locations, unplugged it, removed the 4 bolts. This whole rail will then release, and we will remove it. Just be aware at this point, you obviously have fuel all over the car. Don't catch anything on fire. And don't go and open the door either. Every time you open the door or press lock on the key, it's going to wake the car up. It's going to prime the fuel pump, which in this case is just going to spray fuel all over the engine bay. Now that we have the fuel rail out of the way, all that's left to do is remove the bolts that hold on the actual valve cover itself. We have a whole bunch of these E10 or E-Torx bolts all the way around. So you're going to go around the whole valve cover. There's some at the back too, so you'll have to get creative with your swivels, and then you have them around the middle, around the spark plug and injector holes as well. So we're going to get all of those loosened. Do note that they are retained in the valve cover, so you're not going to be actually removing them from the car. They're going to be held in the valve cover itself. So once you've released all the bolts on here, I'd go around and double check, make sure you really got all of them. We're going to get a small pry bar or a screwdriver or a putty knife, whatever you want, and we're going to get under this front corner here and break the seal of the gasket. In this case, this one just popped right up. Sometimes you got to pry on them a little bit. If you get one side up and you're finding the back side is being more difficult to release, double check you got all the bolts. If you did, sometimes they take a little bit more force. So once we get that loose, we can then lift it up and out of the vehicle. This is a little tricky. There's not a whole lot of room to work with. So let me get it about halfway out and I can show you where we're going to fish it out from. So once we get it loose, we're just going to pull the valve cover straight up, and then we're going to rock the whole thing. I can almost do this with one hand. So pull it up, and then we're going to bring it up towards the intake manifold. Once we're about in the middle of the engine bay here, then we can pull it up and out of the car. So in most cases, you'll find that these gaskets have gotten pretty hard. Sometimes they'll almost feel like plastic. In my case, this gasket actually feels really soft. Like, I think it's been replaced recently. I do think they used a lower quality part. There's no brand name here, and it was leaking at the very back edge of the valve cover. Could see it better from being underneath the car. So we're going to go ahead and get the new gasket put on this valve cover. When you do that, every once in a while you'll find that there's sections of it that don't want to stay in place, especially when you go to put it back on the car. What you can do is just use some black silicone in this ridge here, and it'll just, all it's going to do is hold the gasket in place while you reinstall it. So we do have the big gasket as well as 3 around the middle there. So we'll get all 3 of those, or sorry, all 4 of those replaced. And then the other thing we'll do with it off the car is we're going to pull out these 2 E-Torx bolts there and remove the eccentric motor gasket. And we'll leave that off when we put the valve cover back in. We'll actually put that on after the valve cover is bolted in place. So for now, let's get the new gaskets put on here. After we get the old gasket out, go ahead and get a rag and fish it down this whole edge here. I want to clean out any debris, as much oil as we can, just so that we get a good seal with the new gasket. And if you didn't notice, when I First started the video, the gaskets that I'm using to replace this are L-ring. I got them from FCP Euro. They have a lifetime warranty. If it ever leaks in the future, I plan to own this car for quite a while. I can get the parts replaced for free. I would recommend using something like L-ring or just go with the OEM part to avoid issues. Once we have the new gasket in there, what I like to do is take the valve cover, flip it over, give it a little bit of a shake, and if you find that certain areas of the gasket are falling and hanging out like that, that's where you want to go through, put that little drop of RTV in the gap there, push it back in, and that'll just give it a couple minutes to set up, and that'll keep it from falling out as we go to reinstall it. Once we have our valve cover all prepared, we're going to set it off to the side and do some preparation on the engine itself. We're going to go around all the sealing surfaces of the engine, so all the way around the outside, all the way around the middle of these, with some brake cleaner, with some rags, paper towels, and we're going to get those as clean as possible. Do be careful when you're doing this. There ends up being a lot of sand and dirt on this edge. You don't want to push that into the motor, so try to keep that out of the crankcase when doing this. So once we get that all cleaned, we'll be ready to install the valve cover. Okay, so once we have all of our mating surfaces nice and clean, we're going to be ready to throw that valve cover back on. The one thing I would do, make your life a little easier, get wires fastened out of the way. Maybe you want to put a bungee cord on this as well. Get these pulled back out of the way just so you're not worried about pinching anything under the valve cover. The one thing to be really careful for as you install it, obviously we're going to go in the same way, so straight down the middle and then kind of bring it down to the left. But really keep an eye on the gasket on the back side of the valve cover. Once I have it set down, before I even start bolting it down, I always grab a mirror and I'll check around the whole perimeter of the valve cover, because the last thing you want to do is have that gasket roll. Put it all back together only to fire it up and it's dumping oil on the exhaust. So we'll go ahead and do that, and I'll just get the valve cover resting on here and verify that the gasket stays in place. So with the valve cover dropped into place, I'm going to take my mirror on a stick and I'm going to go around the whole edge of it and visually inspect these inner gaskets as well, make sure they're all where they need to be. Once we've inspected and confirmed the gasket is all in place, we're going to go through and get all of our bolts started. We don't want to tighten anything yet, just get them in like 1 or 2 turns, get every single one of them started, and then we'll start tightening things down. Now that we've got them all started, we can begin tightening them down. So we want to start in the middle of the top of the valve cover. We'll tighten these and then work our way out to the edges. Once all these center ones are tightened, we'll start in the middle of both sides on the outside, move out side to side until we get all the way to the end of the valve cover. So what I'll do is I'll use my small impact here, just get them all snugged down in that order, and then I'll go back with a hand wrench and hand tighten them starting in the middle, same order, back to the outside edges. When you're doing this, they're going to snug all the way down and then they're going to stop. They don't need to be crazy tight. Once they're all the way down, just give them a good snug up and you're good to go. Now that we've got the valve cover all the way down, I'm going to go ahead and install the eccentric shaft motor seal. Before I do that, I'm going to get a rag, wipe down both this flat surface as well as the round surface. After which this will just slide right down over top and we'll put our 2 screws back in it. Alright, after installing that, at this point I'm going to go ahead and put in my new spark plugs. If you haven't done them before, they're about as easy as they get. Take them out, put them in, thread them in all the way by hand, and then they'll just take a nice easy snug up. There's a torque spec for them. I've done enough to have a good feel for them, but if you're worried about it, look up and go to that torque spec instead. These style of plugs have a copper seal washer, so they're not going to compress as much as other types that have I believe they're aluminum, but they'll compress like half to a full turn of the spark plug. These will snug up, and then it's just that tiny bit more to get them tight. If you don't know if you need new spark plugs, there's a couple of things you can look for. First being, you see the new plug has a fairly tight gap. The old one, if I'm being honest, these old ones really aren't bad at all. I'm just wanting to start fresh with all the maintenance on here since the car is new to me. But when they get really worn, that gap will get pretty large. You'll also sometimes see extra discoloration, cracking in the ceramic there. When they go bad, they'll sometimes separate the ceramic from the steel there, or you could always just replace them based off of mileage. With those installed, we can go ahead and reinstall the fuel rail. The way I'll do that is I'll set it in here, I'll get all of the nuts started, I'll get the 4 11mm bolts started, and then first I'm going to tighten all of these fuel line nuts, and then I'll go back and I'll tighten the 4 11mm bolts. With the fuel rail bolted back in, I can move these plastic clips back into place where they cover the 2 bolts there. Put the electrical connector back on the fuel rail and fish this harness back into place as well. After doing that, I'm going to bring my coil and injector harness back over and get it fished roughly into place, after which I can start plugging in all of those injectors again. The trick with these is you're going to get them set roughly into their plug like that. It's just setting in there, and then I get a screwdriver and I push on the back of the connector here to get it clicked all the way back in. If you don't have it clicked in all the way, you're going to end up with a misfire. So what that's going to look like is just putting the screwdriver on top of the plastic part of the injector and pushing down on it lightly. You'll feel it click into place. After doing that, we're going to take our 3 ground wires, reinstall them, and get those 8mm nuts put back on them. Alright, now with those attached, we can go ahead and put all of our coils back. If you look at the head, there's an obvious place where the coil will be oriented, so we'll drop that in there. I like to plug it in first, so you'll push the plug in about halfway and it'll start to fold that down, after which you can snap it shut. If you look down in the top here, you can see the plug itself right there. Make sure it's seated all the way. Sometimes these folding bits get broken, and when you pull them down, they won't pull the connector in all the way. And once again, that coil is not going to be getting power, and you'll have a misfire on that cylinder. After which, you're going to take it, and just like I did, you're going to push down on it good and hard. Sometimes you use your palm. It should thunk all the way down to the bottom. So now I'm going to go down and do the other 5 coils. Okay, now that I have all my injectors installed, I'm going to make sure this harness is back in place. So I'll pull it over and get it lined up to where we can get that T25 reinstalled. And on this end, there's that little clip. Goes onto this part here. Just bring it over, push it down. With that in place, we can start to get more of our wiring put back. So next thing I'm going to do is grab my bracket here. And once again, this is a T30 that fastens it in place. That is how it's going to be oriented, after which I can reach down and grab my plugs to the oxygen sensors and get those both plugged back in. When you've got those plugged back in, make sure these plastic connectors on the back are pushed in all the way. Put them back into their brackets and make sure the wires are also into the clip on the exhaust heat shield there at the back. It'll focus on it right there. After which we will take our eccentric shaft motor wire and we're going to get that rerouted. That should go under the wires to the O2 sensors as well as under this pipe. And then we're going to feed that into these clips along the fuel rail as well. So here's what that'll look like once reinstalled. All tucked into its clips underneath the O2 sensor wires. We'll put those back where they need to go. Then I'm going to take this small wire here, comes out of the harness, and I'm going to bring it back over into its clip. Remember, this goes to the mass airflow sensor. We want to keep it up here where it's accessible. You don't want it dropping down there where you can't find it later. With all of our wires in the right place, we can go ahead and feed this foam piece back there on the valve cover. So that'll take some finagling to get into its place. Your reference points, if you will, are this mounting nub here coming through, and then there's one in the back that the foam actually has a hole that it pops down onto. that in place, we'll take our wiring bracket and we'll go ahead and put it back into place. Snap it in at the back there. Bring it down to its 2 mounting holes in the back, and we'll put those 2 T25s back in there as well. With that back in place, I'm going to remove the bungee cord from the wiring and get those put into place next. First part of what I'm going to do is get these back into their holes at the back here, and they're just half moon shaped, and they'll drop right into a little slot. So those are all the way down. I'll take the bracket, little plastic clip that goes over it, and that'll fish in at the back like that, and then just snap down into place. Now with the 2 big wires, we'll take the smaller back of the 2, and it's going to drop in just like that, right across that front one, and then coming down the middle here. The larger of the 2 is going to go on top of it, just like that. Now that we have that on there, we'll take the cap for the wires, and if you look at it, it has some hooks on the end, so we'll get those pushed into place first. See if I can get the back side too, and then we just click it down, and that is good to go. With that now all together, I'm going to go to my intake pipe here, and I'm going to remove this hose. You can hear how brittle that is. If I bend it a little bit, I'm sure it'll snap just like that. That's why we replaced these. So that has 2 T25s. I'll then take my new one over there. I'm going to spray some silicone on the O-rings just so that they slide in easier, and I'm going to bolt it back onto this intake pipe. Here we are now with the new part installed on the intake pipe. There's the, there's the part number if you need it. I got this from Ryan, I'm not going to pretend to know how to pronounce it. Decent quality part. If you're worried about it, OEM is always going to be the best option, but here's a place I feel comfortable saving a little bit of money. As you can see, this part's still rigid, it's still plastic, but this I can at least bend around without it cracking and breaking. So I would expect when you go to replace the spark plugs in a couple years, this may crack again. This is a good part to buy through FCP Euro, get that lifetime warranty, and just replace it every couple of years. Now to reinstall this intake pipe, I like to remove both of these just because they tend to fall out. They don't fit very tight in there. So we're gonna first worry about getting this lower air pipe fit on there, and you'll want to push it to where it pops on, but we're not going to tighten it yet. Don't worry about getting this fed in yet or any of these other pipes yet. With that now fed loosely on there, I'm going to bring my attention up to the top here. Make sure this wire, we brought it up and put it into this clip earlier, it needs to go over top the foam, and we're going to bring it around and just go ahead and plug it in now so we don't have to worry about it when there's not much space to work with later. Get that clipped in, and now we can bring our attention to getting this fed in. We'll just get it started, and then we'll bring the whole pipe up and over. You may need to rotate it. We can come up to the top here and get this pushed onto that grommet as well, and then you're just going to have to kind of manipulate this, twist it, pull it forward until you get this clipped into place. Be patient with it. It is a little bit of a pain in the butt, but you'll eventually get it to clip in. You may have to go one of these tabs at a time until you get all 4 snapped into place. This will be, I think, one of the more tedious parts of the job. You can see I still don't have it pushed in quite all the way. What I think I'm going to opt to do is pull these back out. I'm going to get this clipped in first, and then I can rotate it down and put it into the intake pipe. Okay, in my case, that ended up being the much easier option. I was able to get the top snapped in and then get it back into the pipe there. So I'll throw the 2 T25s back in there. I have that 10 millimeter, this guy right here, coarse thread. We'll go back into there, get that snapped into place. I've already got that plugged in and already got that grommet pushed into place. With all that back in place, we'll go ahead and put the plug back on this breather hose here and tighten down the worm clamp there at the bottom. Now I'm going to go ahead and replace the air filter. The way to do that is remove all 6 of these T25s. The box will separate and you have the filter element in the middle. As you can see, these screws are also retained, so we'll get that separated and we can get our new filter installed. After you remove the old filter, always go in and remove all this dirt and leaves and whatever crap has found its way in there. The new air filter that I got is a Hangst. A man filter is also a good option. I'd stick with the OEM or high quality brands like those. Once we get the new element pressed in there, let's go ahead and put the two halves of our air box back together, and I'm going to go ahead and install it right away. Only things are, we're pushing this together with that. I do that first. Once it's in place, push down firmly at all four corners of the air box to get it fully seated. As you can see, I think there's three of them. We got a pin here, pin here, pin here that it's going to snap down onto. And now I've got it just pushed in. We'll align it with our pins underneath. Get a good solid push on all corners there. Then we can tighten up that clamp. And remember, we have these three wiring harnesses or wiring looms that we need to snap back on or push back onto those pins there. At this point, everything is installed. If you were to want to start the car, test run it, check for leaks, whatever you like, all that's left to do really is the cowling on the top and the beauty cover. And then I'm going to actually start with that beauty cover here. So we have those two rubber pieces we need to reinstall. And then when you take the engine cover, you're going to install it. It's got the two kind of slots. It's going to slide in here and then tilt down, and it has two places in the front where it clips into place. I'm going to go ahead and reinstall this fresh air tube. Doesn't really matter which order. I'd press it in maybe to the air box first and then clip it down into place. Once again, this, the air box, the engine cover, that can all be done after the cowling if you like. When I put it back together, it's nice to be able to do a test run of it before you get it all the way back together. Now we can go ahead and we'll get this aluminum crossbar reinstalled. It goes from there to there. It's got those two 16mm bolts, and on this chassis they're both the same size. Next we'll take this piece here, fish it back into place, and if you remember, this here should be in front of the piece that we just installed. We'll have the two T25s in the back, a 10mm here, 10mm here, push pin here if you have it. Now we can go ahead and get our center panel reinstalled. This one being held in with 6 T25s. Go ahead and get that bolted in. We'll go ahead and get our cabin air filter box reinstalled. Once again, if you got new filters, now's the time to put them in. And it'll go with this clip here towards the front. And you have obviously the triangle there. It's going to match with the triangle in the back there. And it should just clip down into place. With that installed, we just have the two cover pieces there. We have to start with the right side because the left side overlaps it. So we'll go ahead, and this just snaps into place and has that one push pin if yours has it. Once we get that in, I'll go ahead and put in the other side as well. Last thing, if you did remove it, get this weather stripping pressed back into place and you're all set. Hopefully that was fairly easy to follow along with, and wish you good luck. Today we're going to be installing a new drive belt on this 2016 F15 X5. It's a X-Drive 35i with the n55 in it. This job should be pretty straightforward. Just going to need a basic set of tools. You will need some torque sockets as well, and we'll go ahead and get right to it. First thing we're going to need to do is remove this fresh air pipe here. You're just going to grab it, pull straight up on it. Same thing at the front here. Let's just kind of pull it towards you, maybe twist it side to side. With that removed, we're going to unclip everything that is attached to this big aluminum crossbar here. So just kind of pop everything out of their clips here. And then you're going to have 4 13mm bolts, 2 on either side, after which we can get that removed. Once those are all loose, we're actually going to lift it up on this left side to get it up on top of that frame rail, and then that'll get us enough room to gently bring it up and around this coolant hose without moving it around too much to cause a leak. Get it over the top of that, pull it to the right, and we can get that removed and out of the way. With that out of the way, we'll remove these 2 clips that hold on to these air conditioning hoses. So we'll pop all the hoses out of them, first, and then we'll come back and remove them from the fan. Once you've got the hoses out, these clips will slide off to the left. You can see, if I turn it over, there's two little tabs on it. You should be able to just wiggle it and pull to the left and get them to pop off. You may have to manually go in and release those tabs. You may also be able to leave those on there. You're just going to have to work around them as you pull the fan out. With those out of the way, you then want to reach down and unplug that large plug that goes to the electric fan. After you do that, if you look down on the right side of the engine bay, there is a piece of the charge piping that attaches to the fan. If you get a pry bar and pull and push against the charge pipe, it'll separate from the fan, and that's all that we need to do there. That there should be about all the separation we need. As we get the fan started pulling up, that's going to come out the rest of the way. And then over here, once we have the fan unplugged, we're just going to try to pull everything towards the engine as much as possible. And then if you look down the side of the fan here, those are clips that hold the fan in place. So if you push on the tab on the very top side of that clip, it'll release it. And there's one on either side. Once you have those released, that'll allow you to grab the fan and pull straight up with it. And then it's just a matter of wiggling it around the AC lines and the plugs to get the fan out of the vehicle. Once you get both of those released, you'll see I'm already separating here. This side is rigid, whereas this one you can see is on like a swivel, like a door. So we're going to get the pry bar in there. We're going to rotate that arm forward, and that's going to allow us to slip by that upper radiator hose. So here you can see that now folded up, and we should be able to pull this whole fan assembly straight up and out. All right, you will need to be patient as you work this out, but you will eventually be able to get the fan out of there. This tab here tends to hang up on these AC lines, so you're going to have to pull them over just a little bit. But here you can see this arm is rotating and this one is fixed. And if I move this out of the way, you can see where they slide into place on either side. And how we have to release that locking tab. So now that that's out of the way, we have enough room to work with to be able to get the belt out of the vehicle. So I've gone ahead and used a bungee cord to fasten those out of the way. Good time now. You can see the front of the engine well, inspect for any leaks. Oil filter housing here is a very common leak, which will leak onto the belt. And these are known for the belt eventually getting sucked into the motor and causing all sorts of problems. In this case, pretty well bone dry on this vehicle. We're just going to replace the belt, and we're doing it preventatively. This one's not too bad yet, but just getting ahead on maintenance here. So we're going to take note of how that belt is oriented, and then it's as simple as getting a T60 that's going to insert into that hole there. We're going to rotate that clockwise, and that will relieve tension from the belt, and we can pull the old belt off of the vehicle. So there's the T60 that I used, relieve tension, and now I'm able to fish the belt off from around all the pulleys and get it out of the car. So the new belt that I have here is a Continental. It's an 8PK 1390. Maybe different depending on the options that you have on the car. I got this one from FCP Euro. They offer a lifetime warranty on everything, so in 40,000 miles, when I want to do this again, I send it back, get a refund, and get a new belt for free. So I'm going to go ahead and get my T60 back on here and relieve the tension while I feed the new belt into place. Once we have the new belt fitted, I'm always going to go around with my hand and just make sure that all the ribs are seated on all the pulleys properly. Down under where we can't see, up on top, because if it's off by one rib, it's going to throw the belt, it's going to shred the belt, and you're going to be doing this all over again. So now that we have that on there, it's as simple as getting everything back out of the way, and we're going to slide that fan right back in through the top, and we're going to make sure that it gets seated on that clip. Once we get this far, we're going to reopen that side clip as well and get it all put into place. Okay, once we get that dropped in, we're going to fold out that arm. Make sure that both sides are fully seated. We're then going to go ahead and plug that power back into the fan. We're going to verify that on that charge pipe, that rubber bushing is fully seated as well. If you put the bungee cord on these, go ahead and release that now, and then we're going to take our 2 clips there, slide those back into place, get the AC lines refastened to those as well. With those back in place, we can now reinstall our aluminum crossbar here, same way that we brought it out. So we're going to bring the left side in first, get it up on top of the frame rail there, and then we can fish it under the coolant hose there. Both of these wires should be around the front because we're going to have to put those back on the clips after. For now, let's go ahead and get our 4 13 millimeters back in there. Now all that's left to do is go ahead and put our 2 cables back in their places on the back of the pipe here, or back of the aluminum bar. With that done, we'll go ahead and put our fresh air pipe back in place as well. So I'll go ahead and last thing to do is get this fresh air pipe fitted back in. In some cases they'll slide right over, other cases this lock ring will come apart. So with it separated, just push it on and then snap this together to lock it in place and push this side into the hole there. With that done, go ahead and clean up your mess and you are all set. Hopefully that was an easy video to follow along with, and good luck with your next project.